Why is Kendrick here? A couple walks into the travel agency where I work. The second I turn my cheerful customer service smile their way, my smile freezes. We're going on our honeymoon. Sitting next to the glowing bride-to-be is, for some reason, my own husband, looking as pale as a ghost. What's going on here? I have a lot to say, but a drama isn't suited for the workplace. I hold back my tears and suppress my emotions for the moment. But I make up my mind that their adulterous honeymoon will not have a happy ending. Brace yourselves. I'll make sure your trip is nothing short of hell. My name is Miranda. I'm 26, and I've been dating Kendrick since we were students. Our relationship continued even after we became working adults, and 3 years after graduation, we got married. We transitioned from lovers to spouses and started a new life. At first, living together was exciting and every day was happy, but as we lived together, I started seeing who he truly was. Kendrick had been a bit of a heartthrob since his student days. Even as an adult, he's still a looker. When we go out, women passing by do a double take. As for myself, I've always been somewhat confident in how I look. But after getting married, balancing work and housework, as well as saving for a future with kids, I found little time or money for myself. I worked at a travel agency, and depending on the season or circumstances, working late is not uncommon, so there were times when I couldn't manage household chores perfectly. That's when Kendrick would get annoyed.
Can't use work as an excuse to neglect the house. I'm working too. What's the point of being married if dinner's not ready when I get home?
The man who was once so kind had turned cold, almost as if he were a different person after marriage. Or maybe this was his true face all along. Whenever he got too harsh, I would argue back. That's when he'd say,
"If you can't even handle housework, I don't mind breaking up any time. I'm still popular, you know? I get plenty of offers."
How many times I have cried over his words. Even when I'd rush home, he would decide to dine out, not caring at all about how I felt. Our relationship grew colder in such a household. Then one day, our days off coincided, and we had dinner together for the first time in ages. Eating in silence, Kendrick suddenly spoke up.
"Speaking of which, I got transferred to South Carolina starting next week. I won't be back for a while. Could be a really long time, actually."
South Carolina? Wow, that's sudden. How long will you be gone?
Hard to say. Maybe 6 months or a year. Either way, I plan to enjoy some me time.
Even though Kendrick already acted like he was a free man, his smug smile irritated me to my core. Considering it's him, he might cheat during his business trip. We were already on shaky ground as a married couple, so I didn't voice my concerns. Still, I braced myself for the worst. Little did I know the events that would unfold were beyond anything I could have imagined. A week had passed since Kendrick left for South Carolina. He texted me on the first day to say the move went well, but there were no messages after that. Though I was concerned about him, to be honest, I was quite enjoying my newfound solitude. Coming home to a quiet house was bliss. I never realized how comfortable it is to do chores at my own pace. My co-workers started noticing my upbeat mood, and I felt much lighter. I prefer it this way, with my husband gone on work, as long as he's healthy and bringing in money. It's something I couldn't actually say, so I'd laugh it off. My good spirits continued until my boss offered me an opportunity.
"Miranda, you've been doing exceptionally well lately."
Thank you. It's all thanks to the help I get from everyone around me.
"We appreciate your contributions too. Actually, another branch nearby is short-staffed. Would you mind helping out for a while?"
Absolutely, I'd love to. I was thrilled to be recognized for my work, and even more excited to experience a different work environment. The other location was a bit far from home, but with Kendrick gone, there was no rush to get back. The timing was perfect. I agreed without any hesitation and started helping at the other branch the following week. It was in a large commercial complex near a train station and was busier than my current location, making it incredibly satisfying to work there. One day, a new customer came in. "Nice to meet you. We're on our honeymoon." It was a couple. The woman was a bit younger than me, strikingly beautiful, almost model-like. The jewelry she wore was embedded with what looked like expensive gems, hinting at a life of luxury. But what shocked me wasn't her. It was the man sitting next to her. When I saw his face, I almost screamed. I couldn't believe my eyes. The man sitting at the table was Kendrick, my husband. He was supposed to be on a business trip to South Carolina, so why was he here? At first, I thought he might be a look-alike, but when he saw my face, he broke into a cold sweat, his eyes darting left and right. What on earth was going on? I wanted to confront him then and there, but I couldn't make a scene in the shop. I put on my best customer service smile, but inside, my mind was racing. When I glared at Kendrick, he looked away without saying a word. Contrastingly, the woman was all smiles, chattering happily about their honeymoon plans. "We haven't submitted our marriage certificate yet, but we're planning to get married this year. We're jumping the gun because we're so eager for our honeymoon." "Oh, that sounds wonderful. You look so happy together." "Aren't you married too?" she asked, pointing to the ring on my left hand. "Yes, I am. My husband said he's on a business trip in South Carolina. Who knows what he's actually up to?" A side glance at Kendrick revealed he had gone white as a sheet. Still, he avoided eye contact. "You've got to trust your partner, right, Kendrick?" The woman clung to Kendrick's arm and leaned against him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure she wants to get back to you as soon as possible, too,"
he stammered. Who did he think he was kidding? About an hour later, the two left. I immediately texted Kendrick. "Meet me at the local family restaurant tonight. Show up or I spill the beans." Although he'd been out of touch for over a week, his reply came in seconds. Later, at the family restaurant, Kendrick was already there. "It's been a while. What are you doing here? This isn't South Carolina."
"That bossy tone of yours? What a contrast to my beautiful girlfriend, Kelly."
He looked nothing like the pale-faced man from earlier, sipping his coffee arrogantly.
"Didn't expect you to change locations. Were you demoted?"
"That's not the point. Don't we have something serious to discuss?" I pressed, and Kendrick let out a dramatic sigh.
"Your assertiveness isn't cute. You used to be, but lately, you're lacking in appeal."
He studied me from head to toe, as if comparing me to this Kelly woman.
"It was during this time I had a fateful encounter with Kelly."
"Excuse me? You do realize you're married, right?"
"Don't worry, I'm not planning on having an affair. I'll break up with you cleanly, so relax."
"What kind of way is that to talk?"
"Don't make a big fuss just because I'm dumping you. You'll get wrinkles and look even more unattractive. And don't make a scene in front of Kelly, okay? This is work, so act like it."
With those words, he left the family diner without waiting for my reply. I was so angry, I wanted to grab him and punch him right then and there, but I couldn't cause a scene in front of the other customers. "Fine, if that's how you feel, I'll give you the best trip ever." I swallowed my boiling anger and vowed to take my revenge. So, what I proposed for them was the nature-filled refreshment tour for newlyweds. It was a relaxing domestic trip to enjoy the beautiful air of rivers and forests. When I sent over the paperwork, "I'm really looking forward to it," Kelly called me, saying so. Fast forward 2 months to the day of the tour. The couple appeared, luggage in tow. I greeted them warmly. "Today, I'll be your tour guide." "Not only did you suggest the tour, you're guiding us? That's wonderful, thank you." Kelly beamed with joy, while Kendrick looked at me suspiciously.
"You'll make sure it's a fun tour, right?"
"Don't worry, I've prepared thoroughly for today," I responded, smiling the kind of smile I use for work. I had indeed prepared meticulously for this day. I was all set to turn their once-in-a-lifetime honeymoon into an unforgettable tour. Now, please board the bus for transportation. Please note you'll be sharing the bus with other tour participants. They boarded the bus as I directed. Upon boarding, Kendrick's eyes widened in surprise. Oh, what a cute couple! Are you on the same tour? An elderly couple already on the bus waved to Kendrick and Kelly, while Kelly waved back smiling. Kendrick immediately came up to me.
What's going on here? Why are my parents on this bus?
Yes, the elderly couple were none other than Kendrick's parents. I had consulted them about his cheating, and they eagerly offered to help me exact revenge. How about getting on the bus? The tour is just getting started.
Darn it, this is ridiculous.
Kendrick was seething with anger, but he couldn't lose his cool in front of his clueless girlfriend, so he boarded the bus, his face a mask of pure irritation. Kelly, thinking the older couples she bumped into were just random strangers, continued her cheerful conversation with father-in-law and mother-in-law. So, you're on your honeymoon. Ah, to be young. What do you like about him? Well, he's incredibly genuine. He loves me for who I am, not for my looks or money. He always speaks kindly to me and never lies. That's great, isn't it? Honesty is so important. Yes, he's so open with me that it puts my mind at ease. Good for you. A man who lies is just the worst. While mother-in-law and Kelly chat, Kendrick pretends not to hear and stares out the window in silence. Every time the bus passes through a tunnel, his already tight expression hardens, making him look like livestock being taken to market. As they eat delicious food and look out at the river, Kelly and father-in-law and mother-in-law seem to have become fast friends. All the while, Kendrick's discomfort is palpable, his face increasingly pale. Is it because he's sweating so much that he's thirsty? He repeatedly sips from an empty water bottle. You look off today. You okay?
It's nothing. Is this tour over yet? I'd like to get off for a bathroom break at least.
Struggling to keep it together, Kendrick finally asks for help. I respond with a smile. Just hang in there a little longer. We'll arrive at our final destination soon. Please enjoy the beautiful scenery until then. After about 10 more minutes, the bus finally arrives at the last spot. Staggering off the bus after his energetic girlfriend, Kendrick looks around and is at a loss for words.
Wait, where are we?
This is a hidden gem, a scenic spot very popular with couples. Our final destination is a highland bridge spanning a large river. With nothing obstructing the view, the river below and the beautiful blue sky can be seen for miles. What a great choice for couples. Let's take a picture together.
No, I'm fine. You go ahead.
Come on, let's go. Kendrick, pulled along by Kelly, hesitantly steps onto the land bridge. He looks down at the river and freezes. You see, Kendrick has an extreme fear of heights. Even shopping on the 3rd floor of a mall and looking down gives him pause. You can imagine how terrified he must feel now. Actually, you can bungee jump from here. There's a superstition that if the boyfriend jumps while declaring his love, the couple will be forever happy. Really? That's amazing! Next to Kelly, whose eyes are sparkling, Kendrick can't even speak. He just shakes his head.
I can't do it. I really can't. Please understand.
Strapped into his bungee jumping harness by the local instructor, Kendrick couldn't help but cry and sniffle.
Forgive me, Miranda.
Who's Miranda? My name is Kelly. She instantly turned serious, glaring at Kendrick. Normally, this would have turned into a big confrontation, but overwhelmed by the fear of bungee jumping, Kendrick started blubbering and spilled everything.
I was just messing around with Kelly. She's just some pretty rich girl. And I was planning to have a little fun and then go back to my life. Why are you so upset about a little cheating?
What? Cheating? What are you talking about? Confused, Kelly listened as I told her everything. That Kendrick was actually married and I was his wife. That Kendrick was a lowlife who only cared about a woman's looks. and that the elderly couple on the tour were my father-in-law and mother-in-law. After hearing it all, Kelly took a deep breath and turned to Kendrick. Is everything they're saying true?
But look at what I'm going through. Don't you think I'm the victim here?
She gently laid her hand on Kendrick's fully secured harness. Answer yes or no. You're married? Yet you were playing around with me? Even promised to marry me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't forgive you. With a smile, Kelly gestured for me to come over. Shall we do this together? Absolutely. We both stood behind Kendrick and gave him a hearty push off the platform. No! Kendrick's death wail echoed throughout the canyon. And so, with that grand scream, our newlyweds tour came to an end. Later, Kendrick was shaped with a hefty fine from Kelly, and unsurprisingly, she called off their engagement. Kendrick had quit his job, hoping to live off Kelly's wealthy family, and now that was all out in the open. First order of business, find a job to pay off the fine. To make matters worse, his own family disowned him after the incident, leaving him with no one to turn to. Then he had the audacity to ask me for a reconciliation, but I was having none of it. I also served him with divorce papers, and am pushing a settlement in divorce court, leaving him with debts exceeding $60,000. What kind of miserable life he'll lead from now on is not my concern. As for Kelly, she seemed grateful to me. Thanks to you, I put one over on that idiot. Next time I meet someone truly wonderful, please handle my honeymoon arrangements again. I'll be waiting. And so we both set off on new paths in life.
My name is Michelle. I'm a 31-year-old office worker. My husband, John, is 2 years older than me at the age of 33. We met through a setup, and now we're in our second year of marriage. I was what you'd call a sheltered only child, attending public school like anyone else during my elementary years. But from middle school through college, I attended a private girls' school. There was that characteristic same-sex admiration typical of girls' schools, but I didn't quite understand romantic feelings for men. It was not that I had no desire to get married, but I had only been with a man twice in my early 20s. We parted ways without ever progressing to marriage. I thought, I'll meet the right person eventually. But before I knew it, I was in my 30s. Seeing this, my parents seemed worried. My concerned father finally lost patience and started bringing matchmaking profiles, saying, "It wouldn't hurt just to meet them." One of those men is my current husband, John. After our initial meeting, we saw each other a few times, and he confessed his feelings for me. John is a gentle soul, and he held his parents in high regard. I, too, cherished my parents, and feeling our values aligned, I thought, I could make it work with this man, and so I decided to marry him. After that, our marriage was quickly arranged. Our parents and friends blessed us at our wedding reception, and I was overjoyed. I wished for this happiness to continue forever. However, within a half year of marriage, my father-in-law passed away due to an illness, and John became overly attentive to his mother, who was left alone. John frequently visits my mother-in-law and even goes on trips with her. While he also cherishes me, his mother-in-law always takes precedence when it comes to her. At this point, it seems to me more like he's a mama's boy than simply caring for his mother. It's a little frustrating, but apart from that, there are no major issues, and I resigned myself to the thought that this is what marriage is, and I compromised with my life. Lately, my joy has been entering sweepstakes, winning prizes, and writing reviews or introducing them on my blog. Most of my winnings were cosmetics and food, but one day I won a pair of plane tickets to Miami. This was the first time I'd won such a high-value prize, so of course I was shocked when I got the call. The winning pair of tickets required me to notify the airline in advance of who would be going. I thought to myself, what should I do? It would be really nice to go with John, but John just went on a trip with his mother-in-law recently. Considering that John often travels within his own pocket money, I decided to gift the tickets to my parents this time. I immediately went to my parents' house and told them the news. Guess what? I won a trip to Miami. Why don't you guys go, Mom and Dad? Oh my. When was the last time we had an overseas trip, dear? Hearing my mom's words, she was overjoyed. However, Dad didn't seem as enthusiastic. I have work commitments. Dad, didn't you say you still have some paid leave left? It's a busy season for our industry, and as the department head, I can't really take time off. Michelle, if you can manage to get leave, why don't you and Mom go instead? I see. Well, it's a great opportunity, so why not? Having been turned down by my dad, I decided to broach the topic of leave with my boss the next day. Fortunately, it was a quiet period at work and I got permission easily. I promptly contacted the airline to let them know Mom and I would be going. And after work, I stopped by a bookstore at the station to buy a guidebook on Miami. I headed home with my head full of dreams about the trip. When I arrived near the house, I noticed the lights were already on. John must have returned home already. I need to hurry with dinner, I thought. But when I opened the door, it wasn't John's shoes I saw in the entrance, but a familiar pair of women's shoes. Michelle, what do you think you're doing leaving the house empty until this late? Oh, mother-in-law, I didn't know you were here. This is not about whether I was here or not. It's time for John to come home. Normally, you would be preparing dinner and a bath to welcome your husband home. Don't you have any sense of your responsibilities as a wife? My mother-in-law lives nearby and has a spare key that John gave her. I understand she's lonely since her husband passed away, but her unannounced visits and assumption of making herself at home do not sit well with me. Moreover, my mother-in-law subscribes to the old-fashioned notion that a wife should serve her husband's family, and she doesn't seem to like the fact that I work. Each time we meet, she nags or throws snide comments my way, so I find it hard to warm up to her. Well, what's with the sour face? And that bag? Did you take a detour instead of coming straight home? What a useless wife. Show me what you bought. What are you doing? Stop it. Ignoring my protest, my mother-in-law snatched the bag with the guidebook in it. What's this? Are you guys going to Miami? How extravagant. No, this is a prize I won. I'm giving it as a gift to my mother. Well, nobody told me about this. As my mother-in-law and I were arguing, John arrived home. I'm home. What's going on here? Welcome home, John. I hear that Michelle won a trip to Miami in a lottery. How standoffish of you to give it to Michelle's parents without any discussion. I would have loved to go. A trip? To Miami? I wasn't informed either. I thought I'd present this to my parents this time. How many people can go on this trip? It's for 2 people. Well, you should have told me beforehand. I would have loved to go as well. Why are you deciding things on your own? I also considered going with just the two of us, but this time I wanted to gift it to my mother. What are you misunderstanding here? This time, I'm going with Mom, and you're staying home. My husband cut off my words and started saying outrageous things. No way! I won this. I'm going to give it as a gift to my mother. We can do that another time, right? Since Mom wants to go, try to understand. What are you talking about? You just went on a trip with your mother not too long ago. What's wrong with going on a trip with my own money? Anyways, this time, Mom and I are going. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce. When I heard the word divorce, which my husband brought up like a trump card, I felt my feelings for him completely cooling off. Fine. Do what you want. I decided to get back at them and backed off. My husband and mother-in-law, ignorant of such a thing, looked triumphant. You should understand. You should have done that from the beginning. Ignoring their sneering and arbitrary words, I was contemplating how to get back at my husband and mother-in-law. The next day, I reported the situation to my parents. My mother, who was really looking forward to it, seemed disappointed, but she showed understanding, saying, I see. If that's the case, it can't be helped. It's better than causing a rift between the two of you, so don't worry. Feeling sorry for my mother, I decided to make up for this situation. After that, I called the airline during my lunch break and informed them that I'd like to change the trip to Miami to my husband and mother-in-law. The call center operator looked troubled. We're sorry, but we can't accept changes to the reservation once it's been made. Moreover, the airline tickets are invalid if the winner isn't present. This was written in the documents we sent you. Please check. When I looked at the rules on the back of the air ticket and the winning notification carefully, it indeed said, only the winner has rights and transfer is not allowed. I explained the situation to the operator and told him that I would decline this prize. As for my husband and others, I decided not to inform them about this, and if they really want to go, they should pay the full amount on the day. So that night, my husband, who came home from work, opened the conversation like this. Hey, Michelle, you did call the airline, right? Told them we're going to Miami with Mom? I made the call. Here, take a look. The winning documents and tickets. All the details are in there. Make sure you read it. What a hassle. I can get by without reading all that. Just take it, will you? I gave it to my husband knowing he doesn't read these things, but he, as expected, didn't read it and put it on the shelf. Try to enjoy this as a good deed to your mother-in-law, okay? I'll be more than happy to stay home. I can't wait to see the look on their faces on the day of the trip. John was staring at me, looking as if he'd been hit by a ton of bricks. And then the day of the trip arrived. John and his mother were held up at the airport. What? What's the meaning of this? Explain. As we have said, these tickets cannot be transferred. If the winner of the tickets is not present, they are void. This is stated in our policy, and anyone else will need to pay the full amount. John and his mother had booked some very fancy hotels, leaving their budget on the brink. And then, as John and his mother were trying to buy tickets at the counter, another disaster struck. I am very sorry, but there seems to be an error. Could you please use another method of payment other than this credit card? That can't be. I've been using it just fine until now. Why is this happening? I'm afraid we can't determine the issue here. Please check with your card company. John, having no other choice, paid with another credit card and then called me. Hey, what's going on? The tickets you gave me can't be used, and now my credit card's been declined. Did you read the back of the ticket? It clearly states that the tickets are void if the winner cannot be present. And I know nothing about your credit card issues. Not my card. Your credit card. Oh, I see. Well, I've suspended my card. I didn't see it in my wallet, so I suspected that you might have taken it. I'm glad it wasn't misused. That's not funny. You won't get off so easy when we get back. That's your own doing. What you did is stealing, you know. What a woman. I'm divorcing you. Get out. Sure. Just as I thought you'd say, as you wish, I'll agree to a divorce. The truth is, I was planning to go back to my parents' house before he told me to leave. I had already packed up using the paid leave I had taken for this trip. When I left the house, I took the passbook and the seal so he couldn't spend our savings and informed the neighbors that we would be divorcing. When I checked the amount of our savings for property division in case of divorce, I found out that he had spent it several times over. I never recalled withdrawing the money, so it's clear that John was behind it. When cross-referencing with my daily blog posts, the day the money was withdrawn coincided perfectly with when John and my mother-in-law were on vacation. I reported to my parents about being approached for a divorce by John, that he had taken my credit card, and he had gone on a trip with my mother-in-law using our joint savings. Upon hearing my story, my parents gradually grew stern. I can't believe John would do such a thing. I'm sorry. It's my fault for setting up the arranged date. My dad bowed his head in apology to me. He seemed quite angry with John. This is my responsibility. Leave the rest to me. Actually, my dad is a director at the parent company of John's company, and he occasionally conducts audits. This time, although someone else was supposed to go, my dad rearranged his schedule on short notice to audit John's company. There, he invited John's superior, who is an executive at the subsidiary, for a meal. Given that the position of director at the parent company is higher than that of the president of the subsidiary, John's superior was trying hard to appease my dad while breaking into a cold sweat. My dad told John's superior about me at the meal. Actually, my daughter is going to get divorced. It seems that there were troubles due to the husband's excessive attachment to his mother. I would have told her to endure it if it were just that, but it seems he also took out my daughter's credit card without her permission and even dipped into her savings. I couldn't tell her to get back together with him. By the way, the son-in-law, former son-in-law, I suppose. He's your subordinate, isn't he? How's his work attitude lately? I hear it's a busy period, but I haven't seen him around. Upon hearing my divorce story from my dad, John's superior, who had a bad feeling about it, decided to investigate John. John, being the son-in-law of the parent company's director, was a well-known fact in his company, and he was somewhat favored, so it would likely reveal quite a bit if scrutinized. I am arranging for a lawyer introduced by my dad to handle the divorce procedures and will soon be sending a written confirmation including the issue of alimony and property division. John told me that he wouldn't let it slide, but it seems that it won't slide for John and his mom after they return from Miami. And sometime after John and my mother-in-law returned from Miami, John came to visit my parents' house.
Michelle, what's this certified mail all about? I'm broke. I can't afford to pay any alimony. And what's this property division? It's just a marital spat. There's no need to go this far. I apologize, so please come back.
What are you saying? Have you even read what's in the certified mail? Your mom's daily mental abuse? Not to mention dipping into our savings and trying to use my credit card without my permission? There's no way we can make amends, right?
Please don't say that. Since you left, it's been rough on both Mom and me.
Really? For instance, are you getting cold stares from the neighborhood women? Or, has there been a big problem at work? John seemed to stiffen at my words. I guess I hit the mark.
How did you?
Who knows? Why do you think that is? If you think about what you've done, you might get it. There's no way I could get back together with you, and I'll have you pay what needs to be paid. Prepare yourself. Also, please go through the attorney from now on. If you continue to linger, I'll report it to the security company. When I mentioned the security company, John finally backed down and left dejectedly. Actually, everything that John came crying about was something that my dad and I had set up. Before returning to my parents' house, I visited the neighbors and told them, I was kicked out of the house after my mother-in-law and husband stole the plane tickets I won in a lottery. I must say, my performance was incredibly convincing given my drama club experience from my student years. Apparently, ever since my husband and mother-in-law returned from their trip in Miami, they've been the subject of whispers and gossip in the neighborhood. My mother-in-law was embarrassed to find out from a local busybody that she was being avoided because she'd heard, "You took your daughter-in-law's winning travel tickets and kicked her out, didn't you? What happened next? You must tell me everything." From this, at my husband's company, my father had an investigation carried out. It turned out that my husband, who was the son-in-law of a department head in the parent company, was using his position to do whatever he wanted. He took time off during busy periods to travel with his mother-in-law, repeatedly showing up late or leaving early. Not only that, but he was also found to be embezzling company funds. Given the circumstances, he was fired, and the company declared to all its employees that it would no longer show preferential treatment to family members of those in the parent company. Thanks to the lawyer hired by my father, my divorce proceedings went smoothly and I officially divorced my husband. I was finally able to return to being single. The savings my husband had squandered were split evenly according to the amount before he began dipping into them, and I received a decent amount of compensation. The daily records I had kept in my blog were recognized as evidence of his emotional abuse. I felt very refreshed after getting my revenge on my husband and mother-in-law. I didn't want to just keep the compensation I received from my divorce, so I decided to splurge and enjoy myself. I scheduled a vacation to coincide with my father's company holiday, and I decided to go on the overseas trip I couldn't take before. I was unsure of where to go, but considering my mother's wishes, we decided to go to Miami. My parents and I planned our itinerary by looking through the guidebooks, planning to enjoy the crystal clear seas and coral reefs, do some shopping, and fully enjoy our first family vacation in a long time. Having saddened my parents with my divorce, I intend to make it up to them from now on. I can't think about remarriage right now, but if I find someone I truly want to be with, I might consider getting married again. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm looking forward to my trip with my parents and cherishing this happiness.
I'm sorry for being insensitive the other day. That's what Eliza, who's usually sarcastic, said to me as she bowed her head. For all I know, maybe Eliza was genuinely apologizing this time, reflecting on her past behavior. I let my guard down because of her apology. Little did I know that a police-involved incident was about to unfold. My name is Lisa. I've been working as a daycare teacher, a dream job, since my childhood. My husband Jace and I have been married for 3 years now. As we are enjoying a lazy day off, a call came in from my mother-in-law, Eliza. "You should come visit us soon. You haven't been home for 6 months." Upon hearing Eliza's voice, Jace made a face of annoyance. Though my in-laws' house is just a 30-minute drive away, Jace never seems eager to visit Eliza. He's always been put off by his mother's excessive meddling and maintains some distance. Eliza has always thrown jabs at me, ever since we got married, as if blaming me for taking away her only son. Though I find Eliza difficult, I have no choice but to go when called. The last time she told us to visit and we didn't, she showed up at our house unannounced. To avoid that hassle, it's better to go see her before she takes matters into her own hands. Sure enough, upon visiting for the first time in 6 months, the sarcastic comments started flying. Every time I visit, I feel stressed, being pestered about not having children yet. "You can't have kids because you're busy working. A woman should stay home." My father-in-law, Derek, a retired middle school teacher, often had to work on weekends due to his hectic schedule. Housewife Eliza always boasted, "I raised Jace all by myself. We can't make ends meet on my salary alone." Jace immediately encountered Eliza's snide remark. I want to work because being a daycare teacher was my dream, especially this year as I'm in charge of the seniors. I want to see them through to graduation. I explained that we're not planning to have kids yet, but that just led to more insults. "I was against your marriage from the start. What good does a daycare teacher do for society? You're just playing with kids all day, aren't you?" I was angry at being accused of just playing, but I let it slide with a wry smile. I can't let every one of Eliza's words get to me. Once she started her insults, there was no stopping her. "These days, mothers are terrible for leaving their kids so young. I wonder if it's mostly single moms or poor families." Eliza let out an exaggerated sigh. I can handle her criticizing me for not having a job or kids, but I can't keep my emotions in check when it comes to her prejudices against parents. Look, parents are struggling every day to balance work and raising their kids. What you've done, spending so much time with your children, is commendable. But not every family can afford to have a stay-at-home parent. So stop making such comments. "How dare you argue with me when you can't even have children?" Eliza retorted. As Eliza and I glared at each other, Derek finally spoke up. "Eliza, you're out of line. Watch your words." I was surprised that Derek came to my defense. He's a man of few words, and usually stays quiet when we visit. Apparently, Eliza doesn't realize she's being offensive. "What's wrong with speaking the truth? Children who are left in daycare probably won't turn out well," she continued. Ignoring Derek's warning, Eliza reiterated her prejudiced views. Angry at her comments, Jace started to hastily get ready to leave. "Enough is enough. Lisa, let's go." Eliza wanted to stop her son, but Jace was already heading for the door without looking back. "He's become so cold to me since he got married." Eliza became hysterical, perhaps because her son was being cold to her. She blames me, but Jace's cold behavior isn't new. Ever since he moved out, he began questioning Eliza's excessive interference. I was shocked to learn she'd go into his apartment with her own key and read all his mail. "What are you standing there for? Go get Jace right now," she commanded. Jace, who had already left the house, was ordered to be called back. Feeling irritated, wondering why I had to be given orders in the first place. It's sad, isn't it? You were always around, yet you're disliked. You mistake it for love, but it's just excessive interference. Thank you for showing me how not to raise a child. I snapped. I knew we wouldn't see each other for a while, so I let it all out. I was also angry about her terrible comments about daycare parents. I felt a sense of relief getting that off my chest. Her face turned red with rage. You'll see. I'll kick a nasty woman like you out of my house. Eliza slammed the front door after kicking me out. I figured this means I won't be called or visited for a while. I told Jace, who was waiting for me outside the entrance, what had happened. Good on you for standing up to Mom. We'll have some peace for a while now. I felt reassured by Jace's words, but what Eliza said last still bothered me. If we don't hear from her, I guess we don't have to visit for Christmas. A few days after thinking this, Jace got a message from Eliza. She's asking if we'd like to come to a pizza party. She said she regrets what she said to Lisa and wants to apologize. Jace asked me what I thought, and I hesitated. Honestly, I can't imagine Eliza actually apologizing. The olives on the pizza are from a friend's farm. They're really fragrant and delicious. Let's just go, and if Mom starts her snide remarks again, we'll just take the pizza and leave. I couldn't help but laugh at Jace's suggestion. That's when I remembered Jace has a real love for pizza. All right, let's go. I'm curious to see if Eliza will actually apologize. So we decided to visit my in-laws' home again on our next day off. As soon as we arrived, Eliza immediately apologized. I'm sorry for my insensitive remarks the other day. Can you forgive me? Eliza's deep apology made her seem like a different person. After that, Eliza and I chatted and laughed. This might be a first since we got married. Liza, you sit here. If you want seconds, just let me know. Eliza had even portioned out several pieces of pizza for each of us. Apparently, she's a bit of a germaphobe, even when it comes to family. The fresh pizza emitted an appetizing aroma. I noticed Derek wasn't around as we sat down to eat. According to Eliza, he was working in the yard, and she said to eat without him. Guess we'll start then. Jace quickly grabbed a slice and took a big bite. The moment Jace picked up the pizza, I smelled its wonderful aroma. Eliza urged us to eat the hot pizza quickly, so I took a slice. The colorful veggies on top looked delicious. Eager to enjoy the acclaimed olives, I took a careful bite. But the moment I bit into it, something fell off. The bacon was juicy, and the abundant veggies were delicious. But the olives and asparagus don't have any fragrance, I muttered in a low voice. But I couldn't complain about food that was prepared for us. Jace, do you taste or smell the olives on your pizza? I quietly asked Jace, making sure Eliza couldn't hear. He nodded, as if it were a given. I thought maybe my nose was stuffed because I was catching a cold, so I continued to eat. 20 minutes after we started eating, Derek comes back from the yard and takes his seat. I must have looked puzzled while examining the pizza toppings. He asked what was wrong. I looked at Derek and said, I was just thinking. I don't smell any olives or asparagus. Then Eliza's voice comes from the kitchen. It's on there. Trust me. The moment I hear Eliza's laughter, Derek slams my plate off the table. Spit it out. How much did you eat? The plate shatters loudly on the floor. Caught off guard by Derek's uncharacteristic yelling, I stammer. I ate a few slices. Jace asks what's going on, but Derek just keeps insisting that I spit it out. Eliza, on the other hand, doesn't come out of the kitchen even though Derek is shouting. Confused, I get up to head to the bathroom and feel incredibly dizzy. I rush to the toilet and throw up repeatedly. I start sweating profusely and collapse in the bathroom. Call an ambulance, now! I hear Derek instructing Jace, and it sounds like he's also yelling something at Eliza in the distance. Next thing I know, I'm lying in a hospital bed. Apparently, I fainted temporarily due to dehydration from vomiting so much. You're going to be fine. We got you treated right away, Jace says, looking almost in tears, as he explains what happened. Turns out, the pizza I ate contained Red spider lily, a plant considered poisonous. While it's known for its beautiful flowers, the bulb resembles olives, and the stem looks like asparagus. To an untrained eye, it could easily be mistaken. Quick-thinking Derek had sent a portion of the pizza with Jace to be analyzed, revealing the presence of red spider lily. Is Jace okay? I was concerned as he had been eating silently.
We had all the pizzas checked, but... Jace hesitates. The only pizza that had red spider lily was yours, Lisa.
Chills run down my spine at this revelation, meaning someone intentionally fed me the poisonous plant. And the only person who could have done that was Eliza, who made the pizza herself. The doctor at the hospital says they need to report the food poisoning incident to the health department and asks for details. After hearing the situation, the doctor clearly thinks Eliza's behavior is suspicious and suggests contacting the police. Jace agrees, but says he needs time to process everything.
I can't think of her as my mother anymore. She's a criminal. What would have happened if Dad hadn't noticed?
I recall seeing news about people dying from consuming red spider lily. The thought that I could have been one of them terrifies me. First, I want to talk to Derek. I'm too scared to speak with Eliza right now. When we leave the hospital, we call Derek. He had left multiple calls and messages. However, what's even more terrifying is that there had been no communication from Eliza.
Are you okay? No matter how much I question Eliza, all she says is that she made a mistake, but I'm sure she did it on purpose.
Even the usually reserved Derek seemed agitated.
I've been holding back, but I can't take it anymore. She really is something.
Upon hearing about Eliza's shocking past from Derek, both Jace and I were stunned. Eliza lured me in, claiming she wanted to apologize, but she intended to harm me all along. Anger surged within both Jace and me, so we decided to confront Eliza directly. When we arrived at the parents-in-law's house, Eliza was sitting there, looking exhausted. She must have been scolded by Derek. Yet she didn't apologize or show any sign of concern upon seeing me.
I never thought Derek would catch on. I was hoping to get rid of you, the audacious woman that you are.
Jace snapped at Eliza's brazen attitude.
You've got to be kidding, you criminal.
Eliza seemed rattled being called a criminal by her own son.
What do you mean? I did this for Jace's sake. If he stays with you, he'll never see his children. I'll find him a better partner, so just leave.
Eliza didn't seem to feel any remorse for putting poisonous red spider lily in my food. So you intentionally mixed red spider lily. You wanted me to lose my life? Was this premeditated?
Yes, I did it on purpose. Red spider lily grows nearby. It's easy to get. It's a shame you didn't eat more. You would have done more than just throw up.
Jace lunged at Eliza in rage. I stopped Jace and pulled out the voice recorder I had in my chest pocket. Eliza, you've confessed to intentionally harming me, and it's all on this recorder. I'll be filing a damage report with the police. Eliza paled at the mention of the police.
What? You'd send a family member to prison?
Yes, and both Derek and Jace have agreed. Besides, you've done the same to Derek in the past. I relayed what I'd heard from Derek. There had been a major fight over a trivial matter before. The day after the big fight, Derek noticed that dinner's pizza had no smell of olives. As a former middle school teacher, he was always cautious about food poisoning and knew what could be toxic. Instantly, he thought of red spider lily. Derek faked a stomach ache and didn't touch the pizza. After Eliza went to bed, he checked the trash can and found remnants of red spider lily, which terrified him. Because of his past experiences, he was able to quickly tell me to spit it out.
I can tolerate it if it's just me, but I can't allow harm to come to someone important to my son. We're getting divorced now.
Derek had been able to focus on work because of Eliza's support. She had helped raise Jace, so he couldn't easily bring himself to say divorce. He knew red spider lily had been mixed into the pizza, but never blamed Eliza before. But now, He seemed resolved to give up on Eliza. Eliza, who never thought divorce was on the table, was stunned.
How am I supposed to live now? I'll give you this house. We have some savings. They'll be your retirement fund once we distribute the property.
Derek continued talking about divorce, like he'd been planning it all along. Eliza barely had a moment to interject. While they were discussing the divorce, we decided to leave the house. We'll go to the police station with Jace. Please cooperate once the investigation starts, I said, and headed straight to the police station. The damage report was accepted, so an investigation into Eliza would soon begin. After that, Eliza started calling us almost daily.
Please, retract the damage report.
Her voice was full of exhaustion. Derek divorced her soon after and moved out. Between the police coming and Jace leaving, nasty rumors about Eliza had started in the neighborhood. Though she begged for help, I had no sympathy. I can't deal with any more persistent phone calls. Even if I change my phone number, there's nothing stopping them from just showing up at my house. Fed up with even having to deal with this, I finally said, "Fine, I'll retract the damage report. But never show your face to us again. Even when a grandchild is born, you won't meet them. If you approach us, I'll consult the police." This seemed to shock Eliza, who had been eagerly awaiting a grandchild. However, she must have thought that a criminal record would be more damaging. Eliza ended up paying me settlement money, so I withdrew the damage report. She probably used the money from the property division she got during her divorce from Derek, so her savings must have taken a big hit. I heard from Derek that Eliza couldn't take the neighborhood gossip anymore, and eventually sold her house to move to a cheaper rental in Philadelphia. Apparently, she's been calling Derek, wanting to get back together, but he made it clear that's not happening. From here on out, Eliza is likely facing a lonely life on her own. As for Derek, he moved close to our house. I've grown to love Derek, who I can really count on. I'm sure that even if we have grandchildren in the future, Derek will be there to protect them.
I mean, is education very important to you? Henry, who was happily boasting, frowned at me when I said that. What are you on about? Graduating from a prestigious university and being hired by a large corporation, so you must be on the winning side of life, right? My husband firmly believes such a thing. So all I could do was giving him a cold look. My husband began to have a bad taste in education very much. He has changed so much that I no longer have the same feelings for him like I used to. I'm Jane, and 31 years old. I've been married to Henry, who is 2 years older than I am, for 3 years. We met 6 years ago at a classical music concert. Henry talked to me while we were sitting next to each other at the concert. That is how we met, and we started dating. We went to classical music concerts together for 3 years before getting married, as it was mutual interest. It has been for 3 years since we got married. Now, we rarely go out together or have casual conversations together at all. And our relationship became deteriorated rather than getting bored with each other. Hey, there is your favorite pianist concert, so shall we go together for the first time in a long time? I was tired of such cold atmosphere when we were together. So I tried to change the mood between us and invite him to the concert. He was fiddling with his phone when I was asking for the concert. Then he looked at me and snickered. You can't talk like that until you've done all the housework. I'm not going to spend a lot of money on you. Even tickets aren't free. I'll consider it when you become a little more useful for me. Okay, I'll pay for my own ticket. I still have some savings before marriage. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't understand what I mean, do you? It's no use telling you anything Because you're an idiot, aren't you? Henry is chuckling. The reason I'm not working is because Henry asked me not to have a job. Before I got married, I planned to work until I get pregnant. And I was thinking I should have kept working and could have cooperated with each other. However, Henry is the one who asked me to stay home and do all the housework because he could earn enough money for both of us. Henry asked me to quit my job. Maybe because there's always been a stereotype in him about housewife. Man works and woman stays at home. Or he was proud of himself too much. I prioritized my time to look after our child and quit my job. Henry looked down on me although he asked me to quit my job. I knew I should have married to a wife who was as intelligent as I was. I am no comparison to you, so I feel tired even talking to you. Henry's being sarcastic. He's graduated from Tokyo University and works for a large corporation. He's too snobbish. You and I have too much difference in educational background, so I am too good for you. Henry repeated such a thing at every opportunity. I like that pianist and want to go to the concert, but I am unable to accompany you. I will go there alone if I decided to attend. Why? Before marriage, we used to go there together all the time. You'd understand me, wouldn't you? Just because we lived together for years, it doesn't mean you deserve me. What the heck? Isn't that correct? You should be grateful that I am supporting you, who did not even graduate from a good university. Get out if you have a complaint. As soon as Henry said that, he went back to his bedroom. Why can't we get along with each other? As I recall, he was being caring for about half a year after we got married. He was rather humble, not bragging about himself. After I quit my job, I felt increasingly isolated from society and appeared that we are gradually growing apart very much. 2 weeks later, I went to the concert alone because I had already booked 2 tickets. Henry had turned me down in a terrible way, but I admired this pianist. I was feeling a little empty, but all of the pieces were fantastic, and I was still basking in the afterglow after the concert. I noticed a familiar figure in the crowd as I was walking toward the exit to leave the venue with a good feeling. It must be Henry. He was at the concert, wasn't he? Henry's company has flexible work hours, so his presence here was not surprising. The strange thing was Henry was not alone. He was holding women's hands, who I do not know, while walking. The way their faces were very close while talking and smiling at each other could indicate that they were a couple. I decided to blend in with the crowd and follow Henry. They exited the venue and entered a lovely restaurant nearby. After a while, I received a text message from Henry. Overtime work tonight. I don't need dinner. The message was brief, stating only the facts. He is, however, dining with another woman. His attitude was far different from usual, unlike being cold and looking down on me. However, this explains changes in Henry's personality. He must have been cheating on me previously, and I must have been in the way. Do you want me to give up my job in order to do all the housework? He takes away my freedom and destroys the family on his own, doesn't he? I was spontaneously flying off the handle. The two appeared to finish their dinner and they were walking toward the hotel to enter. I was super shocked about it and unable to think clearly when I got home. I was naturally getting tears in my eyes due to anger as soon as I entered my room, and I could not stop crying. I researched a variety of topics in order to make our lives more comfortable, including healthy cooking and efficient cleaning methods. I was told I couldn't do anything by Henry, but I was still trying to support him. However, no matter how hard I tried, it was a waste of energy for him. I couldn't understand what was going on in my head because I was devastated, frustrated, or angry. I couldn't fall asleep at all. When it was getting brighter outside in the early morning, I heard a noise that Henry just got home. Welcome home. You're very late today. Oh, wow, you were still awake. I was simply wide awake tonight. Didn't you take a nap, did you? That's why you couldn't sleep, right? Housewife would be carefree, and you can just relax at home because I only go to work. You probably have no idea how I feel about working until this late. Henry told lies to me while he was taking off his suit. Many co-workers are counting on me because I have an undergraduate degree from Tokyo University, so I am very busy. Nonetheless, my colleagues are smart as well, and they work smoothly and efficiently. Yeah? On the other hand, you are not as intelligent as they are. You're only graduated from unknown college, and you're boring to talk to. Do you truly believe that academic background is the most important thing? Henry, who was happily boasting, frowned at me when I said that. Of course, I was very proud of myself. I graduated from a prestigious university, joined a large corporation, and worked with high-level executives. I must be one of the winners in life that everyone would think of. Are you jealous with me? No, I'm not. I don't want to judge people based on their academic backgrounds. I believe that there is something which would be more important than a degree. Well, isn't it true that you're also one of them? When it comes to people who do not have a degree, they say education is irrelevant. And who are pretty poor, they say money is irrelevant, huh? I hate it. Like losers have bigger mouths. Isn't the University of Tokyo the top university only in Japan, is it? There are several universities around the world that are even better. Why are you quibbling over those pointless details? Only people who were graduated from more famous universities than I was can say that. Really? I wanted to have a relationship with you regardless of my academic credentials. I told you that I went to university which was closer to my house, but the truth is, I am a Cambridge University graduate. What? Henry was stopped, a stunned expression on his face, and then burst out laughing in a truly hilarious manner. You can't be that stupid to have your academic credentials. That is called into question. How dare you say Cambridge up on the spur of the moment? Henry didn't seem to believe me at all, so I showed him a photograph which I brought from my room. It was a photograph of the university's graduation ceremony. He stopped laughing as soon as he saw the picture and stared at it. Oh, is this... Hey, do you believe me? I have had more famed university degree than you. And I know you look down on me as a housewife, But I was also working from home and have a business with Europeans nowadays. I earn more money than you do. What's that? You did it all by yourself? Henry sweats on his forehead. You wouldn't let me do it if I told you, would you? You have too much pride that will be meaningless. You're like a child. If you are not the best, you won't be able to relax. Have you been looking down on me all the time, haven't you? I am not like you. I kept it secret because I didn't want to create a hierarchical relationship between us by academic background and/or income. I simply desired a normal marriage life. I was not intending to choose a marriage partner based on educational background, and I just fell in love with you, who were graduated from Tokyo University. But you were always mentioning academic backgrounds whenever you talk to me. Educational background is not everything. That was something that I would have wished to know before the marriage, so I wouldn't have got married to such a person like you. Henry was embarrassed and became silent after I told him everything. I did not mean to go this far, but I couldn't be with Henry any longer because I was offended by his prejudice very much. That is why I made a decision to tell him everything. I am exhausted from work, and you stayed up all night just to talk to me about it? Work? Is it your responsibility to go to a concert with another girl, have dinner at a fancy restaurant, and stay over in a hotel? You were being extremely busy, weren't you? Why did you know? I also went to the same concert yesterday, and I saw you with a girl holding hands. You are very intelligent, but so careless. Were you so foolish that you couldn't imagine someone watching you? Henry's face is quickly getting blushed. Henry raised his head and glared at me after a few seconds of silence. You're right. I had a date with another girl. Unlike you, she is not only attractive but also respects me. And she's the ideal partner for me because she's not mean to me. She does not make me look bad and gives me all the credit on both career and private. You are not comparison to her. You only irritate me when you're here. So if you're not going to listen to me, get out. He looks already being over me, and I was disappointed with him. I realized that he was only thinking about himself, and he didn't care about me at all. Okay, I understand. Let's get divorced. I am leaving here, so please pay me the alimony. I have solid evidence of your infidelity. Wow, you are very malicious. Sure, alimony is such a small amount. I offer you some money to pay off to end our marriage. It is nothing because I will be completely free from you. I decided to say one more thing to Henry before he returned to his room. Is she your colleague, isn't she? Because you told me that she gives you all the credit on both career and private. So what? You have a mistress in your company, huh? Trustworthiness is essential in a large corporation, so I believe the president of the company would ask you to respond to your mistake. He came closer to me again after he heard what I said. He seems frustrated. Don't be a fool. There are thousands of employees in the company, so the president would not take it seriously. Oh, well, I often have lunch with the president of your company. What are you saying? I am friend with the president of Henry's company in my business. Recently, the president had started focusing on foreign transactions. Therefore, he has partnered with a marketing firm in overseas. I was the one who introduced the marketing firm to the president. Of course, I'm still acting as an intermediary. Of course, he is aware that I'm married to one of his subordinates. However, I did not tell him about side job, and I asked the president to keep secret about our business relationship because I didn't want him to be treated differently. You're lying, aren't you? Why should I lie? I'm going to tell everything what we talked about today to your boss. Wait a minute. Do you want money? I'll pay you as much as you want. In exchange, don't tell it to the company. What would happen to my life if I got fired? Whatever. You asked for it. I shook off Henry's hand and indifferently said that. I put minimal necessities in my bag. It's time for the train to start running again, and I will be able to return to my parents' house. Please give me second thought. It was entirely my fault. I am very sorry. Please do not tell anything to the company. Henry kept bothering me while I was packing my bag. Of course, I ignored everything, took my luggage, and greeted him. I'll ask a mover for the rest and bring the divorce paper with me on the day I leave. Thank you very much for everything, Mr. Elite. Wait, let's talk more again. He looked awful and grievously burst into tears when I was peeking through the door for a second. A week later, I completely moved out, and I let him sign the divorce papers to finalize our divorce. It had been 1 week since our divorce. Henry, in fact, appeared to be a different person. He's always afraid of something and apologizing all the time. His pride would be distracted. I didn't want to hear anything because whatever he said was not sincere. I was left feeling empty and wondering what he was sorry about. 3 days later, I had dinner with the president of his company. I told him what had happened. Henry was being treated like a nuisance in the company, but the president told me. He checks subordinates out and distributes too much work and makes sarcastic remarks to someone who he dislikes. On the other hand, the president told me that Henry cares one of the junior colleagues very much. Then I asked him to show me the picture of her, and I discovered that the girl with whom Henry has an affair. The president decided to call Henry and the girl the next day since he heard my story. When the president questioned them heavily, they apparently admitted the guilt. Rumor was spread out through the company on that day, and people sneered at them. Eventually, the two could not deal with it and resigned from the company. The two, who were supposed to be the best friends, but started blaming each other and broke up. Henry and his partner have only the alimony that I had asked. In contrast, my business was doing better than I expected, so I decided to take it more seriously. I rented a small office space in Tokyo. I felt bright and kicked off a new start with it. I am still keeping in touch with the president. He has been extremely helpful in delegating his employees for me. I'm sure I will face hardship, but I've made a great connection. I want to value the relationships I have while I start a brand new life without being humble.
What do you mean? I was supposed to shine brightest on this day, yet my expression was strained. Why would you say something like that now? My mother came rushing in as soon as she heard my voice. It was just before my wedding. Despite being in a dressing room, it was not the place for raised voices, but I was at my wits' end. My name is Emily. I'm a 28-year-old employee. My father is a somewhat well-known business owner in our hometown, and I was able to graduate from college without any financial difficulties. However, my parents were always strict about the value of money, so I never wasted any. Since high school, I didn't receive any allowance and worked part-time. My local friends sometimes called me a down-to-earth lady, even though I was supposedly well off. But the truth is, I never thought of myself as such. During work, I saw a familiar face at a client's. It was my senior whom I liked in high school. His name is Tyler. He was popular for his good looks and because he was a member of the soccer team. I was the manager of the team and we used to talk a lot, but Tyler, 2 years my senior, retired that summer. Our contact faded away and he graduated. Could it be Emily? Tyler recognized me and called out. That brought back a flood of memories. He was as handsome as ever, and his suited-up look was strikingly different from before. After dating for a year triggered by that encounter, I got an official proposal from Tyler. I was ecstatic to prepare for our wedding. But Tyler would just say, "Do as you like, Emily," leaving everything to me. I was a bit displeased, thinking maybe he didn't care about the wedding. But since he told me to do as I liked, I decided to do just that. When we went to view the wedding venues, Tyler seemed somewhat restless. I didn't pry then, but it later turned into a big issue. After viewing several venues, I expressed my preference, but then Tyler surprisingly stated, "I think this one is better." It was the first venue we visited, the one where Tyler was acting uneasy. It was a beautiful hotel with great food, so we decided on that venue. Tyler, who seemed to have no interest in the wedding, suddenly started actively participating in the planning. "When I saw the venue, I got motivated," Tyler said without me even asking. Our assigned wedding planner was a woman named Palma, who was the same age as Tyler. Her overly friendly demeanor bothered me. I wanted to keep the wedding preparations within our budget, but Tyler agreed with whatever Palmer suggested, and before I knew it, we had gone over budget. There was a dress I desperately wanted to wear, and I wanted to allocate the budget for that, but it seemed impossible. When I talked to Taylor about it, he said, "Just ask your parents to pay for it, Emily. They'd surely help out with that." But I wanted to avoid that. I didn't want to throw a wedding that was beyond our means by relying on my parents for expenses. When I came back from a restroom break during the meeting, it appeared Tyler had mentioned this to Palmer, and she insisted I needed that dress. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. You'll regret it if you don't wear what you want, even if it means going over budget." I understood her point, but her overly friendly manner and tone that seemed more like a friend than a planner irritated me, and I refused her suggestion. When I tried on a dress within our budget, I surprisingly liked it on me. If we were to spend more money, I thought we should spend it on the guests instead. I came to terms with this myself. When I tried on the dress, Grieve, who was in charge, said something that bothered me. "Do you know Palmer?" When I denied knowing her, I thought Grieve seemed troubled. But I was so excited about my first wedding dress, I couldn't dwell on it. One day, when we were about to go for a wedding meeting, Tyler said he couldn't make it due to sudden work. Reluctantly, I went alone. Then, instead of the usual Palmer, Grieve showed up. Palmer had taken an unexpected leave, and Grieve was filling in. I found it easier to talk to Grieve. I took this opportunity to say that I wanted to change the plan recommended by Palmer, and Grieve agreed after hearing me out. I managed to choose the dress I had always wanted while staying within our budget and returned home in a great satisfaction. The next night, I received a call from Tyler. "You went ahead and changed the wedding plan on your own, didn't you?" His voice was lower than usual. "Palmer wasn't at the meeting yesterday, so Grieve took over. When I told her my wish, she changed it for me. Yesterday, Tyler was busy with overtime work, so I couldn't call him. I sent an email saying that I wanted to talk about the change in the plan and the details when we had time, but Tyler seemed unhappy. Was it because I changed the plan without consulting him, or was it because I reported it late? I am sorry I changed it without asking, but wasn't this the original plan? Tyler, you just went with what Palmer suggested, but you said you'd leave it to me in the first place." "That's rude to Palmer, who went out of her way to make the suggestion." Tyler's anger wasn't about the plan. It was about being rude to Palmer. Why was he defending the coordinator so much? "Tyler, do you prioritize Palmer's suggestions over my feelings?" When I asked more directly, Tyler sighed heavily. "Fine, I'll apologize to Palmer." With that, he hung up. What was that about? Why did it turn out this way? I was troubled, but I didn't want to ruin the wedding, so I apologized to Tyler the next day. I didn't know exactly what I was apologizing for, but I said, "I am sorry about yesterday." Tyler responded tersely, "Yeah, it's fine. I've already apologized to Palmer." Hearing that name again irked me, but getting angry now would defeat the purpose of my apology. I swallowed my feelings. Then Tyler suddenly changed his tone and began to speak. "Oh, by the way, about our new home." "Huh? New home? Aren't we moving into your company's apartment? We planned to register our marriage a month after the wedding on my birthday. Since we could move into Tyler's company's apartment, we thought it would be cheaper and decided to move after the registration." Despite that, Tyler shook his head. "I thought about it, and living surrounded by my co-workers might be uncomfortable for you, Emily. I hadn't really thought about it, but my time at home was limited since I was also working. We had discussed maybe moving in the future, but for now our current place would do, or so we'd agreed." And then, out of nowhere, Tyler dropped a bombshell. "Hey, what if we ask your father-in-law to give us some land, and we build a house there? I'm sure he'd do at least that much for his darling daughter, right? We can put it in my name, so it'd be better if we register our marriage first, wouldn't it? That way, once we're married, we can start right away." "Hold on, what?" I remember thinking during our wedding preparations that Tyler was relying too much on my parents' wealth. It was time for me to put my foot down. "I've told you before, I don't want a life where we depend on my parents, and asking them to give us land is completely unreasonable. Both my mom and dad are very strict about money. There's no way they'd just hand it over." Surprised by my response, Tyler lost his momentum. "I see." With a sullen expression, Tyler fell silent. Even though there was a sense of unease between us, the wedding day arrived. Until now, Tyler might have had the idea to lean on my parents because he was still single, but I believed that getting married would make him feel more grown up and responsible. With that in mind, we went ahead with the wedding. As I entered the waiting room, only Palmer was there to greet me. As soon as she saw Tyler, she left the room. Tyler followed her out. Watching this, one of the staff members in the room seemed to sigh. Despite the uneasiness, I tried to keep a smile on my face, determined to make this the best day of my life. Despite that, Grieve, one of the staff members present, said something unthinkable to me. "Your life is over, you know." "Excuse me?" When I asked her what she meant, Grieve gave me a stem look and she said, "Are you sure you want to marry that man?" "What do you mean?" These weren't the kind of words you'd expect to hear from a wedding venue staff member. As I stood there confused, Grieve continued. "If you don't mind me saying so, that man is cheating on you." The other staff members looked away. Not understanding what was happening, on the verge of tears, I shouted out, "Why are you saying this now?" My voice echoed down the corridor. My mom hurried into the waiting room. She tried to calm me down, while Grieve, too, apologized and tried to get me to sit down. Finally, Grieve broke the news. I was certain after seeing Palmer's behavior earlier. Tyler is having an affair with Palmer. I turned pale. My mother simply said, "I see." Her tone suggested she knew something. When I urged her to talk, she revealed that she had seen a man who looked like Tyler embracing a woman in another waiting room. She had gotten lost and accidentally peered into another room. She couldn't see their faces, so she didn't know who they were, and because she was in a hurry, she closed the door quietly and pretended she hadn't seen anything. She thought the man had a similar build to Tyler, but she had dismissed the thought that it could be him. The woman was wearing a black suit, and she assumed she was a hotel employee. When I described what Tyler was wearing today, my mother nodded. When Grieve asked my mother for more details, it became clear from the description of the hair and height that the woman was Palmer. My anger exploded. I was about to shout, but Grieve stopped me. "Why are you stopping me?" "Please hold on, the staff will be back soon." The staff member, who'd left a short while ago, walks back in. Mrs. Grieve takes her mobile phone from the returning staffer and brings it over to me. On the screen, I see both Tyler and Mrs. Palmer. I can hear their conversation too. "Once we are married, I get the land to build a house. If I play my cards right, they might build a house too. Then, immediate divorce." Tyler declares, chuckling. Next, a voice I assume is Mrs. Palmer's. "Tyler, you're such a scoundrel. If it weren't for me, he would have been happy with her." The two of them laughing together. From their conversation, it seemed Mrs. Palmer was Tyler's ex-girlfriend. She wasn't at the high school, so she might have been his college classmate. Apparently, they met again during the venue inspection and got carried away with the idea that it was destiny. When wealthy and handsome men come for venue inspections, she gets close to them, has affairs, and causes breakups. According to Mrs. Grieve, who heard their conversation, Mrs. Palmer is a groom hunter. However, she always gets away with it because there is never any proof. Mrs. Grieve had noticed her behavior with Taylor and warned me about they might be having an affair. "You could have put it more gently," I say, cautiously. She immediately responds with an apologetic, "I'm so sorry." She had been at a loss for how to broach the subject, then blurted out, "Your life is over," as time was running out to catch them in the act. I take a deep breath and say, "Is it okay if I end his life?" I was going to bring Tyler's life to an end. After I finished changing, Tyler came in. "Isn't it beautiful? I want you to take a picture," I say. Tyler, smiling, takes out his phone and snaps a picture. "Let me see," I request, taking the phone from his hand. At that moment, Mrs. Grieve takes Tyler away to touch up his makeup. I start to search Tyler's phone for evidence of his affair. There are plenty of photos and exchanged messages. I never touched Tyler's phone, so he must have been careless. There was no passcode, and I might not have found the evidence if not for this situation. I screenshot the incriminating conversations and to transfer them to my phone. When Tyler comes back and I hand him his phone, Mrs. Palmer finally shows up. Other staff members had been keeping Mrs. Palmer busy. She had caused many grooms to call off their weddings and resented by nearly all the staff who lost their sales because of her. Tyler must have switched to Palmer's plan to support her sales. I guess he thought he could always beg my family for more money if he ran out. Thanks to the teamwork of the staff present, I was able to gather evidence of the affair. And then the reception begins. The next item on the agenda was to play the How the Bride and Groom Met movie. As the movie begins, Tyler yells out, "Hey, what the hell is this?" The screen displayed footage of him and Mrs. Palmer in a different room, acting intimately. All these were evidences of his infidelity, captured by me in screenshots. A furious yet pale-faced Tyler. I saw Palmer trying to leave the venue, but she was stopped by Grieve and her staff. The hall buzzed with commotion, Tyler's college mates looking at the pair with scornful eyes. I took the microphone. Given the circumstances, I must apologize. Everyone will return the gift cards from the party. Please enjoy the food and treat this as a dinner party. I glared at Tyler. So, you were after my family's money all along, huh? What's this about rekindling with an ex-girlfriend who works at the venue? Isn't it odd to speak of destiny when you're the groom and she's the staff? The red thread of the fate is supposed to be severed, right? As I said this, I was met with applause of agreement from the audience. I'm glad we didn't complete our registration. You were about to tarnish my family register. I'm satisfied just being able to wear this dress and take pictures. I will sue you for compensation in the divorce trial for your affair, as well as the wedding expenses. Unsurprisingly, the wedding was cancelled. I returned the gift cards to my invitees. My disgruntled father, who had witnessed everything, arranged for a lawyer, and I went hard after Tyler. He had to pay every penny for his cheating, for breaking off the engagement, and for the wedding expenses. And not just Tyler, but Palmer too. After a while, I received an apology from Tyler. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. I realized that I truly love you, Emily. Please, let's reconcile. How dare he say such a thing? People like you are bound to cheat again due to such lapses. You don't love me, you love my family's money. Well, after the hefty compensation from the divorce trial, I'm fairly wealthy now. At this, Tyler's face turned red with anger. You are a failure as a wife if you can't forgive a single lapse. Seems like that was his punchline. Well, I'm not your wife, so call me a failure or whatever you like. Laughing, I hung up the phone. Word about Tyler and Palmer spread among our classmates. It even reached their bosses and co-workers, and they had to quit their jobs. They sent me emails full of their misery, but I blocked them. Palmer abused her position to use a groom's contact information for personal use. She was sued for damages by her employer, and I sued her for compensation. She lost her job and had to work at a grocery store, looking completely exhausted. This is what I heard when Grieve came to apologize. As for me, I immersed myself in work. Work is enjoyable, but now I'm looking forward to joining a marriage party to find someone I can truly marry.
There are just some people in life you'll never get along with. That's a lesson I've learned. Sorry for starting off on such a strange note. My name is Nellie. I'd be glad if you could lead an ear to my story for a bit. I'm married to a man named Greg. Greg's swarmed with work and is often away in the Boston area for his job. While waiting for him to come back, I live in the house we bought together. But recently, my mother-in-law Shannon has been showing up a lot. "You could never deserve this house," she always says. You see, we live pretty close to Shannon's place. We settled here because she insisted we live near her family home. Sure enough, she started visiting frequently once we moved in. "Listen, Veronica, my other daughter-in-law, just got married and wants the house. Since you're the only one here, why not give up this place?" She said something outrageous. This is the house that Greg and I bought together. How could she ask me to give it up? "But Greg is always away, right? So what's the problem?" That's not a valid reason at all. If I give up this house, Greg won't have a home to return to. I had been firmly refusing Shannon's absurd request. Then one day, she came over with Veronica. "Oh wow, this is such a nice place. Perfect for my new home." Veronica examined the house as if she owned it. Being scrutinized like that was unnerving, to say the least. "I love this house. Hand it over now." Veronica joined in with her outrageous demands. Of course, I refused. "You dare defy me, you insolent woman!" And then Veronica got violent. "What are you doing?" Even as I said that, she didn't stop. I curled up to protect myself, enduring her attacks. Shannon was standing there, laughing. "Well, if you're going to cower like that, you shouldn't have defied me in the first place." It seemed like she didn't like the fact that I refused, but she didn't have to be this violent. They left for the day, but they said they'd be back to try and take the house again. I was scared they'd actually take the house from me. I contacted Greg, who was still away for work. When I told him what happened, he said Shannon and Veronica had reached out to him too. Apparently, Shannon has always favored Veronica over him and used to discriminate between them when they were kids. This time too, Veronica told Greg that she wanted a house and asked him to give it to her. Greg sounded really down. I tried my best to cheer him up. We couldn't talk much because he had work left. And then, the next day, Shannon and Veronica returned. "We're getting you to hand over the house today." This time, Shannon entered the house wielding an umbrella. It wasn't raining, so why an umbrella? Then suddenly she swung it at me, clearly threatening that if I didn't give up the house, she'd beat me with it. "All right, say you'll give us the house. Veronica will be the new owner." Veronica also had an umbrella and swung it towards me, along with Shannon. I've been hit by Veronica before, so I was genuinely scared she might actually hit me and raised my arms to protect myself. Both were swinging their umbrella so hard that the whooshing sound filled the air, causing me to flinch and cover my head with my arms. The scene was so terrifying, I couldn't move for a few minutes. "Stubborn, aren't you? Even after all this, you still won't give up the house," Shannon said, sounding exasperated, but I was too scared to even speak. Their attitudes were as if they'd done nothing wrong. It was infuriating. Eventually, Shannon and Veronica left for the day. But as they left, they threatened that the next time they really might hit me. Thinking that my life could actually be in danger, I was filled with dread. I immediately called Greg and told him about today's events. Greg was concerned for my well-being and suggested that we think seriously about our next steps. And then he made a proposal to change the situation, feeling there was no other choice, I agreed to go along with Greg's plan. During the operation, I made sure to not be home when Shannon and Veronica would come. This way, the plan went forward without them catching on. 2 months after initiating the plan, I got a call from Shannon. "I'm tired of waiting to see you. I've decided to move Veronica in whether you like it or not, and I'll throw your stuff out myself." Shannon was laughing as if she had won. Apparently, Veronica was already on her way to the house, but they knew nothing about the plan. I'm sure Veronica would be in for a surprise. While talking to Shannon, a call from Veronica came in. Putting Shannon on hold, I answered Veronica's call and heard, "Who are you?" "I'm the homeowner. Who are you?" "This is my house," a male voice responded. Realizing the call had connected, Veronica started speaking to me. "Nellie, what's going on? Why is there some stranger in the house instead of you?" Veronica sounded confused. I decided to explain the situation to her. "Veronica, actually we sold the house. Greg and I decided it was the best move." Hearing this, Veronica let out a loud, "What?" I wish she wouldn't yell. It's a disturbance to the new homeowner. "Why would you do that? I never heard about this." "Well, if we had told you, you would have stopped us, right?" I didn't say anything, so it was a strategy. Greg was also quite upset with Shannon and Veronica's actions. Most of what Greg owned had been taken by Veronica, and now they were trying to take the house too. This was the final straw. Fortunately, we had received some financial support from my family when purchasing the house, so we had little to no mortgage left and could sell it outright. "This isn't funny. I really like this house. What am I supposed to do now?" Veronica was furious. Apparently, they'd already planned to live here, and she had even terminated the lease on the apartment she and her husband Ricky were living in. Now, they can't live in this house, and Veronica's faces homelessness. "Why not go back to your parents' house?" I asked, genuinely puzzled, and Veronica became enraged. "Ricky absolutely refuses to live with them." Shannon must really have it in for Ricky, judging by what's been said. Well, if someone is that obnoxious, it's no wonder they're disliked. Veronica wouldn't stop complaining about how she absolutely needs that house. But the house is already sold and the new owners have moved in. What does she expect us to do? Over the phone, I could hear a man's angry voice. Apparently, there's a bunch of stuff sprawled out near the entrance, and he's not too happy about it. At this point, I wouldn't blame him if he called the cops. "Hey, do something about this. You're the one who sold them the house, right?" Veronica, not wanting to be yelled at, tried to make me and the man talk over the phone. "Yes, I did sell them the house, but that doesn't mean we have anything to discuss. Even if we did, the contract has been finalized, so all I can say is, I'm sorry for any inconvenience my acquaintance has caused." I decide to decline Veronica's request. Then, Veronica starts yelling again. Causing a ruckus in front of the house is bothering not just the man, but all the neighbors too. Talking to Veronica is pointless. She just doesn't get it. I thought this was going nowhere and hung up on Veronica. Immediately, another call comes in. It's from Shannon, whom I had put on hold. "What on earth are you doing? Veronica is furious. Fix this!" I'm just dumbfounded by her blame shifting. Shannon is the one who tried to let Veronica move into our house without permission. But she acts like I'm the villain. If it weren't for these two making a scene, I would have continued to live in that house. "Where are you now? Just fix it!" Oh, I hadn't told her yet. I'm at Greg's new posting. What? I decided to move with Greg to his new location. Greg frequently gets transferred because of his work, and we thought it would be better to not settle down in one place. Luckily, we don't have kids, so we have the freedom to change our residence. But that didn't satisfy Shannon. "Come back right now. I need to give both of you a piece of my mind." Shannon sounded furious, but I'm the one who wants to be mad. If it weren't for Shannon's meddling, we wouldn't have had to give up the house. "Enough, Shannon. How much more inconvenience do you plan on causing people?" I figured it's safe to vent, given that I've moved and we're over the phone. "I wonder if you ever think about how much stress you've caused us. Don't bother us anymore." Hearing my resistance must have really infuriated Shannon. She was screaming so loudly over the phone, it was hard to understand what she was saying. It made me worry if she was taking her anger too far. "I can't believe this! How dare you talk back to me like that? Greg, you too! How dare you defy your older sister, even though you're just Veronica's little brother?" It seemed Shannon had traveled all the way to Boston suburbs just to take revenge on us. But she didn't know where we lived. "Hey, tell me where you live!" There's no way I'd comply with such a demand. I naturally refused. Then Shannon screamed again. It was almost funny. She was like a machine programmed to scream every time I defied her. "Enough is enough! I'm Greg's mother. Since when is it okay for a child and his wife to defy their parents?" She was pulling some pretty old-fashioned cards. I mean, there are countless ways to find out where someone lives. Given she hasn't thought to look it up, I doubt she'd ever manage to reach our home. "Give me your address! Neither of you is getting off easy!" "Wait, what?" Suddenly, Shannon's tone changed. I wondered what had happened when she started screaming. "This is all your fault!" Turns out, Veronica had been taken away by the police, aggressively demanding a man leave his home, and he finally had enough and called the police. Well, that figures. Unable to think rationally, believing that blackmail could solve her problems, she must have gotten it from her mother. Getting taken away by the police might cool her off a bit. "How dare you do this to my precious Veronica?" Once again, she's deflecting the blame. I mean, how can it be anyone's fault but Veronica's, who was causing a scene outside someone else's house? Just then, Greg got home from work. I informed him that I was on the phone with Shannon, and he took over the call. "Mom, I've lived my whole life in fear of you, but that's over now. I'm not listening to you anymore. If you come to our house uninvited, I'll call the police." It seems Greg has grown through this experience. To think he could say that much to Shannon, who had tormented him all this time. Greg gave the phone back to me, saying he had said all he needed to say. Shannon, on the other end, screamed again. She's clearly not used to getting pushed back. Doesn't she realize that doing awful things could result in some form of retaliation? "Shannon, just give it up. Veronica has been taken away, and anything you do to me is just going to be petty revenge." Even so, Shannon just kept screaming. She was like a wild animal, so lost in her anger she had forgotten what she was even mad about. This is getting nowhere. Shannon, can I hang up now? I don't think there's any point in continuing this conversation." But she just wouldn't listen. "Don't you dare argue with me! Parents are absolute! A child should never defy their parents!" If she's going to be this unreasonable, well, I've got my own thoughts on the matter too. Shannon, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're done interacting with you. Stop contacting us. I deliberately kept pushing Shannon's buttons. As expected, Shannon flew off the handle and started cursing at me. The things she said were so awful, they could break someone's spirit if taken to heart. But that's precisely what I was aiming for. "Shannon, I've recorded every single abusive word you've just said." As I said this, Shannon stopped her tirade and began to panic. "Recorded? What are you doing?" "Shannon, you're the one in the wrong for using hate speech. Slander is a serious offense. I'm sure my lawyer would love to hear this, and you'll probably end up having to pay a fine or compensation." At that point, Shannon broke down in tears and apologized. "I'm sorry. I just lost my cool for a moment. Please don't involve the lawyers or police, okay?" Since Shannon kept apologizing persistently, I told her to never interfere with Greg and me again and decided to forgive her. Shannon promised, and we never heard from her again. The truth is, I hadn't actually recorded anything. It was all a tactic to make Shannon back off. She didn't even know how to find our address, so I thought she might fall for a simple trick like this. And she did. Finally, peace returned to Greg's and my life. I heard that after being taken by the police, Veronica had to pay damages to the tenants. Having lost their home, Veronica and her husband Ricky moved in with Shannon. But within a few days, Ricky was talking about divorce, and it seemed Veronica was going to be divorced. To top it all off, Shannon had been hurling insults at Veronica's Ricky too. And I heard she also ended up having to pay damages for her insults. Both Shannon and Veronica ran out of money, and what used to be a friendship turned into mutual loathing. The atmosphere in their home is reportedly constantly tense now. Well, they brought it upon themselves. I hope they come to accept the circumstances and move on. As for Greg, he completed his assignment and returned to the main office, only to be assigned to another distant location a few months later. We realized it's more convenient for us both to relocate together, given how our lives have become increasingly busy with transfers. Now, wherever we go, people say we're a great couple, not just at the company, but also among the locals in the places we move to. After overcoming challenges without giving in to Shannon and Veronica, we realized that we'll be fine wherever we go. We look forward to supporting each other as we move forward in life.